So I'm Steven from Rugged Routes, and today I'm going to show you guys how I like to set up my Lowrance GPS when I'm out riding recreationally. This is a question I've had numerous times over the years, and again just recently by a customer that was wondering if I can set up a GPS the way I like it, export the settings file, which I'll show you guys how to do as well, and send it over to them. So today, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you guys exactly the data overlays that I like to use, and then I will post it on the website, and the link will be below in the description of this video. So let's get started. Fresh out of the box, a Lowrance HDS Live will look similar to this. Your speed by default is in the upper left. Your scale for the map is in the bottom right, and that's pretty much it. So today we're going to make this screen a whole lot more useful, and we're not talking about adding maps, we're just talking about adding data overlaid on top of the map. So to get started, we need to get into data overlay mode. So we'll go ahead and momentarily click the power button, the physical power button. The system controls box will pop up, and then we will select the edit overlay option. Now you can see the speed over ground in the top left is now highlighted in blue, or has a blue outline around it. So with that, we can now come over to the right side over on the configure option, and we can make our speed over ground larger. We can switch it over to analog if we want. If we want to put a black background behind it so it's easier to see, we can do that. I personally don't like to do that. And we can get rid of the captions, so the little SOG in the top left, I'll get rid of that, and it'll just give us our speed. If we want, we can invert the text and make it white, which I just leave it black. So typically this is how I like to have my speed showing, but I typically would have it down in the bottom left, because it's one of those things that I like to glance out once in a while, but ultimately if I'm comfortable driving the car, I'm driving the car. I'm not too concerned about how fast I'm actually going. But now we want to add some more overlays. So we'll hit the back button in the top right. So we get back to this this series of buttons here that has the add option in the top right. So we'll go ahead and click add. One of the first things I'm going to add is come all the way down here to transmission. If you are in a side-by-side and have my UTV Belt Temp sensor, the best thing to do with that, or I guess the reason you would buy that, is so you can monitor your belt temp, and that's going to be enumerated in the GPS as the trans oil temp. So we're going to add that here. I currently do not have a belt temp sensor hooked up to this unit currently, but I'm still going to show you guys the steps of how I typically like to do it. So we'll add that first, and we'll go back and change some options here just momentarily. In addition to that, we have a lot of navigation stuff, and this is kind of the heart of what I keep an eye on when I'm out riding. So I'm going to bring in the destination, and I'll explain all these in just a moment. Distance to destination, and then one more, the most important one, is the steer arrow. So we've got 4 new things on here now: the belt temp, the name of a destination, distance to destination, and the steer arrow, which you can see are all blank off to the left side. So we're going to configure these a bit more. So I'm going to hit the X up in the top right, and I'm going to start moving things around. So you can simply just drag and drop any of these options however you want, wherever you want on the screen. But we'll organize these a little bit more. We'll start with the belt temp sensor. I'm going to touch on that, then come back into configure just like I did for speed. And I'm going to make the size of belt temp medium as well. I'm going to kind of just do the same thing as we did for speed over ground. A little bit different though, because that's something really important. So I'm going to bring the bezel in, but I'm still going to get rid of the caption. So once the belt temp sensor is plugged in, it's going to show the temperature of the belt nice and big in the top left with that background. So no matter what the map looks like on the background, it's not going to interfere or make that number difficult to see. The rest of the stuff that's going to be on the screen, I typically leave the bezel off because it's less crucial and allows me to kind of see the map around the data rather than limiting a lot of the screen space with just these black squares. So I'll leave the temperature just like that. Next is the steer arrow. So I typically bring that right in underneath the belt temp, and I'll make this a pretty good size. Get rid of the caption and invert the text. Nope, yeah, just get rid of the caption. And actually, instead of large, I'll go to medium as well. So I'll keep that nice and organized there. And then the destination, I'll bring in over here. Sometimes I'll make these extra small because I can read them when I have to, but they don't need to be overbearing. Oops, kind of got these too close together. Here we go, bring that in up there. And distance to destination here. Trying to get it lined up perfectly. It's kind of hard to do when I'm on video here trying to use my left hand. But all right, we're just gonna leave it there. Mess with it long enough. So I'm gonna get out of the edit overlay mode here by going back, and then we'll hit save in the bottom right. And this is just to show you guys how this navigation stuff works that we just added. So let's say we're out driving in the desert and we ultimately just want to get back to camp. We want to know what direction is camp. We don't have breadcrumbs or a trail that we traced or anything to really go off of. We're just out in the middle of nowhere. And we know that camp is riding distance from where we are. But we don't really know the best way to get back there or how to pick our way back through the desert. So in this example here, I have this camp icon. If you just touch on camp, or anywhere on the screen for that matter, but we're going to use this camp icon as an example, and then touch on the bubble, you get to this edit waypoint screen. There we go. And right here in the bottom is the go to button. So we'll click go to. The GPS will draw a line straight to camp. And now, no matter which direction we're pointing our car or which direction we're traveling, this steer arrow will always point in the direction that camp is. So you can use that arrow to just follow back to camp. If you have to go around a mountain or something, and you figure if camp is directly off to your left at like 9 o'clock, but there's a mountain there, you can hug that mountain, get around that mountain, and then just keep following the arrow. Literally, if the arrow says camp is off to your right, well, keep going right and just follow that arrow best you can. And especially if you're in an area where there's open riding and you're not restricted to being on a trail, you can pick your way through the desert and make it back to camp very, very quickly. I've used this a couple of times in the desert where other people I was with weren't familiar with this feature in particular, and we were able to get straight back to camp in a very, very minimal amount of time when we needed to get back. And they were all pretty impressed. They're like, wow, we immediately just need one of those. As soon as we got back to camp, we need to get that set up because that just saved us a lot of headache. So that's a massive time saver right there. To get out of this navigation mode, to get that red line to go away, you can click on the navigation option on the right side, and then on the bottom, hit cancel. Now all that will clear out. Now we'll get back into adding more data onto the screen here. So we'll just one more time hit the power button momentarily, then click on edit overlay. And now we're back into the editing overlay mode. So we'll hit add again up in the top right. And now we're going to get down into a few extra options that are less critical, but kind of nice to have. So there is a trip meter in these units, so we can bring in the trip distance, maybe our average speed or our max speed. I'm just going to bring in speed average, the trip time, So this stuff is kind of up to you on how you want to do it. I don't always run the trip meter, but when I do, it's pretty much like trip distance and then maybe max speed just for fun. So for this example's sake, I'll leave that in here just like that. And we'll go down the list here. Sometimes time is a really good thing to have. And the last thing that I really like to keep an eye on is voltage. Now, when you're running a lot of electronics, especially in a UTV, the charging systems have a hard time keeping up with like comms and stereos and GPS. And, as you add all these electronics accessories to your car, chase lights, light bars, winches, the list goes on and on, your voltage will go down inevitably, right? So it's always a good idea, in my opinion, to keep an eye on the supply voltage that the GPS is getting. This is pretty much everything I have. So I'll exit out of this and I'll just kind of organize some of this stuff here. Voltage supply doesn't need to be big, taking a lot of real estate. So I'll make that extra small and just tuck it down here in the corner. Time, I'll put it right above voltage supply and kind of do the same thing, just so it's available, but doesn't need to be super prominent. And then the trip meter, I'll just maybe tuck them over here on the left side. How about that? Boom. That's pretty much it. Sometimes the location of my trip data, I'll move around a little bit, but for all intents and purposes, this is along the lines of what I like to ride with. So I'll leave it that, just like that. I'll go back and I will hit save. So I like this setup because all my navigation stuff is in a place that's easy to read. When I'm using the steer arrow, it's large enough to where I can read it on the fly. The belt temp is something that's really important so you don't get stranded out in the middle of nowhere. So I make that as easy to read as possible. Everything else is just kind of the nice to haves. Now from here, I'm going to go ahead and hit the pages button, then come over here to storage, and then the settings database, I'm going to export to an SD card that I have in this unit. So I'm going to go and override my old one, and that export is now complete. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove all of this stuff, and I'll show you guys how I'm going to import that file as well. So I'll just hit save. So now all of our overlays are gone. And I'm showing you guys this so when you grab this file off of the website, you'll know what to do with it. Click settings, .set, which is that file. We'll import. And apparently it might reset here, but we'll do the import. And hopefully I don't lose the feed here. And actually it is restarting. So hopefully it comes back without too much trouble. Here we go. And now I'm just going to hit no on that. Now we can see that our data overlay is back just to how we had it before I cleared it all out. I re-imported the settings, and there you have it. So I'll go ahead and take the settings file. I'm going to upload it to the website so all of you guys can just easily set up your GPSs without having to go through all the steps, and there will be a link below this video. So I hope this helps you guys out, not only with editing overlays, but also a little intro on how to use the steer arrow and those navigation features on the left side. One last thing before I end this video is if you have a 0.1 antenna, one of the things that I also really like to have, especially if I'm in a four-wheel drive vehicle, I'm doing more crawling type stuff, is having pitch and roll. I did go over that in a previous video for setting up a 0.1 from scratch, but if you have a 0.1 antenna, attached while you're doing your overlays, then your pitch and roll options will also be showing up in the add overlay screen. So something to keep in mind. I hope all this helps, and I really appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned, because we are going to get on the trail very, very shortly, getting there. Just got to wrap up a couple things on some trucks and side by side, and then we'll start showing you guys how a lot of this stuff works live out in the field. So thanks again for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one.